David, is this David Miller? I hadn't heard that voice in 4 decades, and I knew it was impossible. The caller ID showed a Vancouver number I didn't recognize, but something about that uncertain, gravelly voice made my blood run cold. It was 2:17 a.m., and at 65 years old, I'd learned that nothing good ever came from calls at that hour. For a second I wondered, was this some cruel joke from someone who knew our family history? "Who is this?" I asked, sitting up in bed. It's me. It's Tommy." I dropped the phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely pick it up again. When I did, the line was still open. I could hear breathing, heavy, labored, like someone who'd been running or crying. "This isn't funny," I said, my voice cracking. "Whoever you are, this is sick. My brother died 42 years ago." "I know how long it's been," the voice said quietly. "I found a newspaper clipping about the bus crash. There's a picture of me, but the name says Thomas Miller. That's me, isn't it? I'm Thomas Miller." My chest felt tight. Thomas Miller had been my little brother's full name, but nobody outside our immediate family ever used it. Everyone called him Tommy. Everyone except— "What did you just call me?" I whispered. "David. David Miller." "No, before that. When you first called." Silence. Then, I don't remember exactly. I just knew I had to call you. I've been having dreams about someone named Davey." Davey. Only one person in the world had ever called me that. My little brother Tommy, when he was too small to say David properly. He'd called me Davey until he was about 8 years old, when kids at school started teasing him about it being a baby name. Nobody else knew that name. Nobody. "Davey, I'm scared. I don't know what's happening to me." If he hadn't said that, I would have hung up. If someone called you at 2 a.m. claiming to be your dead brother and knew a name only he had used, would you hang up or listen? What happened next didn't make sense, and somehow I couldn't hang up. "Where are you calling from?" "I don't really know. A place called the Downtown East Side. Someone told me that's what this area is called. I think I live in a shelter on East Hastings Street." "Vancouver. His bus crashed there in 1983. I identified a body myself. But what if I'd been wrong?" "What do you remember?" I asked. "Not much, just pieces. Sometimes I dream about snow, about being cold, about people screaming. And sometimes I dream about a house with a blue door. And someone used to make pancakes with blueberries every Sunday." I felt tears starting then, hot and sudden, because I remembered that house. I remembered that blue door. And I remembered Mom making those pancakes every Sunday morning without fail. Tommy always ate twice as many as anyone else. "What do you look like now?" "Old," he said, and there was sadness in his voice. "Really old. My face is weathered, I guess. I've lived rough for a long time. But I found this picture in the newspaper from the accident. Even though it's 42 years old, I can see it. I can see myself in that young face." My hands were trembling. Tommy had a scar on his left forearm from when he fell off his bike when he was 7. 12 stitches. There was a long pause. "I have a scar on my left forearm. It's old, really old. I never knew where it came from." That's when my stomach dropped, because nobody should have known that. The drive from Seattle to Vancouver took 6 hours. I left immediately. 3 a.m., not caring about the danger or the darkness. I didn't even pack a bag. I just drove. But another part of me kept hearing that voice say, "Davey." I was 23 when I identified the body myself. His face was swollen. The cold had changed everything. What if I was wrong? I reached Vancouver at 9 a.m. and found the shelter on East Hastings. Gray building, industrial smell, the stench of too many broken lives in too small a space. "I'm looking for Tommy," I told the desk worker. "Common room, through that door." I walked toward it, heart hammering, and then I saw him, gray ponytail, flannel shirt, sitting alone by the window like he was waiting for something that might never come. "Tommy," I said. He turned around. Weathered face that looked 70 instead of 61, deep lines carved by hardship, but the eyes, brown with gold flecks, exactly like our father's. "Davey," he said, and his voice cracked. "What would you do if he looked nothing like your brother, but knew what no stranger could?" I couldn't speak. I stared at this weathered stranger with my brother's eyes. "Show me your left forearm, right now." He rolled up his sleeve. There was the scar, old, faded, but unmistakable, 4 inches long, right where Tommy's bike accident had left its mark. My knees went weak. I grabbed the table edge. "Tell me about the bus crash." "I don't remember it clearly," he said, "but I have nightmares. I'm on a bus, it's snowing, everything is sliding, people screaming, then cold, so cold, then nothing." He rubbed his face. Next clear memory is waking up in a hospital in 2010. A nurse said I'd been brought in from the streets unconscious. They said I'd been beaten, robbed, but I couldn't remember anything. Not my name, not where I was from. 27 missing years. Before that, flashes. Being cold constantly, mountains, construction work, cash payments, but it's all foggy. His hands were scarred, calloused, hard labor marks. For years I didn't try to remember. I just survived. Shelters when I could find them, streets when I couldn't. Sometimes weeks would pass and I couldn't account for them. When did you start trying to remember? 6 months ago. A volunteer showed me a newspaper from January 1983. Something about that date felt important. He pulled out a folded newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The front page from the crash. 17 dead in highway disaster. And there, in a photo grid of victims, was Tommy's face. Young, smiling. The graduation photo Mom had given the newspaper. I stared at that picture for hours. Something clicked. The name underneath, Thomas Miller. I kept repeating it, and it felt right. I researched at the library, found the obituary. Your name is surviving family. Took me 3 months to work up the courage to call. We need a DNA test, I said. He nodded. Yes, I need to know. I found a lab in downtown Vancouver that did same-day testing. 48-hour results. Expensive but thorough. We drove there in silence, me glancing at this stranger who might be my brother, trying to reconcile the broken man beside me with my memories. Sometimes I could see it, the shape of his ear, the way he rubbed his thumb against his fingers when nervous. A habit Tommy had always had when he was thinking or worried. The test was simple. Cheek swabs, paperwork, payment. Later, the DNA specialist said one sentence, and my whole body went cold. Where are you staying tonight? I asked outside. The shelter, I guess. Same place I've been staying for, I don't know, months, years? Time gets fuzzy when every day is about survival. I looked at this man standing on a Vancouver street corner in clothes worn too many times, shoes held together with duct tape, and made a decision that would change both our lives. Come on, I'm getting a hotel room. You're staying with me. You don't have to do that. I'm used to. I know, but you're coming anyway. I found a decent place near Stanley Park. 2 beds, clean sheets, hot water. The desk clerk gave us a look. Me clean and middle class, him rough and obviously homeless, but I paid cash and got the key. He showered for almost an hour. I ordered pizza and waited, thinking about phone calls I needed to make, explanations I'd have to give, a life that was about to change in ways I couldn't predict. When he came out, hair wet and clean, he'd shaved off a patchy beard that had hidden half his face. Suddenly I could see it more clearly. The shape of his face, the set of his jaw, the way his eyebrows drew together when he was concentrating. Tommy's expressions, 40 years older and weathered by hardship, but unmistakably familiar. We ate pizza mostly in silence, watching the evening news. Stories about politics, weather, traffic, normal life happening to normal people while we sat in this hotel room wrestling with the impossible. Finally, he spoke. Thank you for not hanging up when I called, for believing enough to try. Most people would have thought I was crazy. I haven't decided what I believe yet, I said honestly, but I needed to know, one way or another. Can I ask something? What? What was I like before, when I was Tommy? I know it sounds strange, but I don't remember being a person. I just remember surviving. The question hit like a physical blow. I set down my pizza and looked at this broken man who might be my little brother. You were good, really good. Kind in a way that seems impossible now. You were the kid who brought home stray cats, who cried when you saw a roadkill on the highway. You wanted to be a teacher, were so excited about starting college, tears forming in his eyes. You were funny, made Mom laugh even on her worst days. When Dad left, when you were 12, you told me, "We'll be okay, Davey. We'll take care of Mom together." And we did, for 6 years, until the bus. Yeah, until the bus. At that point, I was already sure I knew the truth. I was wrong. The call came Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Dr. Sarah Kim, Vancouver DNA Lab. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. The man sitting across from me, Tommy, maybe Tommy, watched with wide, frightened eyes. "Mr. Miller, the results are conclusive. 99.97% probability of siblingship. You are biological brothers." The room tilted. I sat hard on the bed, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. "You're certain? There's no chance of error." "Yes, sir. These results are definitive. There is no doubt." I looked across at Tommy. My brother who I'd buried 42 years ago. My brother who'd been alive and suffering while I lived my comfortable life in Seattle. It's you. You're really Tommy. He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, like he'd been holding his breath for decades and could finally exhale. I'm Tommy. I'm your brother. We both started crying then. 42 years of grief and guilt and impossible hope, all colliding in a hotel room in Vancouver. I crossed the space between us and pulled him into a hug, and he felt so thin, so fragile, like he might disappear if I let go. But the next question was worse. If he was alive, who did I bury? We needed answers, and I knew exactly where to find them. Dr. Patricia Walsh, trauma specialist at the free clinic where Tommy had been getting basic medical care. I called, explained the situation, and she agreed to see us immediately. Her office was in a building that had seen better decades, but Dr. Walsh herself was sharp, professional, with the kind of tired compassion that comes from years of treating society's forgotten people. I explained everything: the crash, the identification, the phone call, the DNA test. She listened without interrupting, taking careful notes. I'd like to examine you thoroughly, if that's all right, Tommy, she said when I finished. He nodded, suddenly looking younger and more vulnerable. She conducted the most thorough physical exam I'd ever witnessed. Old fractures, scars, a careful mapping of every mark on his body. She used a small light to check his eyes, tested his reflexes, felt along his skull with gentle, practiced fingers. You have extensive evidence of old trauma, she said when she was done. Old fractures everywhere. Ribs, wrist, ankle, like someone had been used up for decades. And there's a depression in your skull here. She touched the back of his head gently, consistent with severe impact injury. From the bus crash? Some of it, possibly. But here's what I think happened, based on your story and these findings. She pulled up a chair and sat down, her expression serious but kind. I believe Tommy did survive the initial crash, but he was badly injured. Severe head trauma, possibly unconscious or semi-conscious. In the chaos of that night, the snow, the darkness, the panic, he was either thrown from the bus during impact or managed to crawl away from the main wreckage before losing consciousness. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The other survivors have said it was complete chaos, limited visibility, people scattered, emergency responders overwhelmed. In conditions like that, it would have been easy to miss someone. So the body I identified was almost certainly another passenger, someone of similar age and build. And the condition those bodies were in after the crash, after hours in the cold, with facial trauma from the impact, it would have been very easy to make a mistake, especially for someone who was grieving and in shock. My stomach lurched. She was right, and I knew it. I'd been 23 years old, devastated, looking at a battered face that could have been anyone. So what happened to Tommy after the crash? This is where we move into speculation, but based on the evidence, she gestured to Tommy's scarred hands, his weathered appearance. I suspect he was found by someone who didn't immediately take him to a hospital. Why wouldn't they? Could have been someone involved in illegal activities themselves, smuggling, drug running, people who avoid official contact. Or it might have been someone who saw an opportunity. A young man with severe head trauma. No memory, no identification. Tommy was staring at the floor, his hands clenched together. The doctor suspected he may have been exploited for off-the-books labor. Remote operations in the BC wilderness, illegal logging, construction, drug cultivation. It looked like he could have been used as cheap labor for years, possibly decades. That would explain the memory gaps, she continued. Years of untreated head trauma, additional injuries, malnutrition, exposure to substances as coping mechanisms. Your brain was trying to protect itself by creating amnesia barriers. Around 2010, something changed. 15 years of hard labor would age anyone prematurely and cause serious health problems. If he started having seizures, cognitive issues, became more liability than asset, they might have simply abandoned him in Vancouver. The room felt cold. 27 years of exploitation, of being used like a piece of equipment. My little brother, reduced to a tool by people who saw his amnesia as an opportunity. Come home with me, I said outside the clinic, the Vancouver evening settling around us like a blanket. To Seattle. Stay with Sarah and me. Fear flickered in his eyes. I don't know how to be someone's brother anymore. I've been alone for so long, I don't remember how families work. We'll figure it out. Both of us. Together. He was quiet for a long moment, watching traffic pass on the busy street. Okay, Davey, I'll try. We drove back to Seattle the next morning. 7 hours that felt like crossing between two different worlds. I kept glancing at this brother returned from the dead, trying to process what his survival meant, what his suffering meant, what his presence would mean for the life Sarah and I had built. Every few minutes, reality would hit me again. Tommy was alive. My little brother, who I'd mourned for 42 years, was sitting in my passenger seat, alive and damaged and real. "Are you nervous?" I asked somewhere around the border. "Terrified," he said honestly. "What if your family doesn't believe me? What if the border agent runs my name and it triggers something? Sarah will believe you. She trusted me enough to let me drive to Vancouver in the middle of the night based on a phone call. That's not something she does lightly. What about your kids? Do they know about me? They know I had a brother who died young. They've seen pictures, heard stories. Rachel, my oldest, she's actually named after our grandmother. Your grandmother too. But they've never known you as real, as someone they could meet." We stopped for gas outside of Seattle, and I called Sarah from the station. "We're almost home," I said. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know yet. It's him, Sarah. The DNA proved it, but he's also different, 42 years different, broken in ways I'm only beginning to understand. We'll figure it out," she said, and I could hear the determination in her voice. "We'll all figure it out together." Sarah was waiting on the porch when we pulled into the driveway, and I could see she'd been crying. I'd called the night before, tried to explain everything, but how do you prepare someone for a miracle that comes wrapped in tragedy? She came down the steps slowly, studying Tommy's face. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then she opened her arms. "Welcome home, Tommy." He hesitated, then stepped into her embrace. I saw his shoulders shake and knew he was crying. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I know this is strange. I know I'm not what you expected." "Strange? Tommy, your family? You've always been family. You were just away for a while." That first week was hard. Tommy would wake up screaming from nightmares, disoriented, sometimes not remembering where he was. But slowly, carefully, he began to settle in. 2 weeks later, I got a call that changed everything again. The name on the old morgue report wasn't my brother's. It was someone else's son. A 19-year-old from Portland, reported missing the same week. That was 6 months ago. Tommy still has nightmares, but therapy helps. He's remembering things. Mom's blueberry pancakes, Christmas mornings, the blue doorhouse. He works at a garden center now. Says plants don't judge. My kids have met their uncle. My grandson thinks Tommy is his best friend. Sometimes I think about the lost years, Mom dying not knowing he was alive. But we can't change the past. I learned hope isn't foolish, even when it seems impossible. Family isn't just shared memories. It's choosing to show up daily, especially when it's hard. My brother came back from the dead. Sometimes people don't come back, but the truth does. And when we pulled the old case file, a signature didn't match. Someone had signed for me. Be honest, do you take him in or call the police first and risk losing him again?